And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast where we never sit out. I'm your host, Matthew Dawson, and joining us again today is co-host C to the D, Chris Dawson. What is going on? What's going on? What is going on?
Nothing much. Today is Sunday, August 27th when we're recording. And that's right. Yesterday was week 0. We already started. We're a little bit late. I'm sorry, USC fans. You had to watch your team, give up a bunch of points to San Jose State. But we're back. We're doing Pac-12. We're gonna bang these out real quick. Love it, man. It's college football. We're right there.
Oh, yesterday was awesome. I mean, quick note, UTEP.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
No, they blew that game, and I'm happy for Jacksonville State. Right, I really am. The crowd was awesome. They were really excited at the end, obviously, and they should be. But you did not win that game. UTEP lost that. They gave it away.
No. The coaching staff, there were like 4 separate timeouts that I can think of, maybe 5 that they just like wasted because they couldn't get themselves straight. They could not figure it out. And then they called a timeout. They called this the 2 timeouts back to back, which obviously rules have changed. You can't do that anymore, which caused a delay of game. Like, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? That's so bad.
I'll be honest,
They had a gigantic offensive line and Deion Hankins, who's a gigantic running back. And they literally, it felt like, they kept showing highlights of Deion Hankins running the ball, but it felt like he was not doing a whole lot, and the line was not getting a great push.
Yeah. Now, it's college football, though, man. It's college football. Week 0, especially with these smaller schools, you have no idea what you're gonna get.
Yeah, you have no clue. But thankfully, we're covering some bigger schools today. Let's get into the Pac-12. I got quite a few picks today. I'm not gonna lie, I got quite a few picks. So let's get after it, eh? Arizona. Jed Fish. How about that season last year? Yeah, okay. Let your casual fan go, oh, they won 5-7. They didn't make a bowl game. This is a program that was the worst program in college football for 3 years. Solid 3 years before this past year. I mean, they were the worst program. And they go out, Jed Fish. People are like, why are we hiring Jed Fish? What is this? Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? Bam, goes out, wins some ball games that maybe they shouldn't have. And maybe the program's looking up from here. What are your thoughts on this year going into 2023 Arizona Wildcats?
This is a really exciting team. I think, like you said, if you're an Arizona fan, you should be excited. It'll be a fun year. Now, the over on the win total, maybe it's a little bit disappointing. It's only at 5. The problem is you got a pretty tough schedule. Now, you do play UTEP, like we just talked about. So that should be a win in week 3 there. Going on the road at Mississippi State in the conference, I love that. I think that is such an awesome, I'm excited for that matchup, right? Arizona, Mississippi State.
It was a good game last year until pretty late. I remember staying up for that game. It ended at like 1 a.m. Central. It was a good game until late. I'll say Arizona, a couple turnovers that maybe shouldn't have happened, but I think Jaden DeLora, they say he's turnover prone, but some of that's just trying to make a play, man. I'd rather have someone try to make a play with with that kind of talent that you have on this team. Try to make a play.
Yeah, and the system, they do lose Dorian Singer, like it says on the screen, along with the rest of the other 2 guys going to USC as well. Now Singer's a stud, right? He had a great true freshman year. He scored a touchdown yesterday in week 0 with USC, but they still have plenty of talent, right? Not only at the wide receiver position, but also at the running back position. Michael Wiley, Jonah Coleman are really, really good. Wiley, they were kind of worried if he was going to test the pro waters or go for NIL somewhere else, but he stayed, which is huge. They also have Rayshawn Luke, who's coming off of injury as well. So it's a deep group, experienced, plenty of talent there. Wide receiver, you could have put Jacob Cowing or Tedoria McMillan. I'm sorry, McMillan is a stud. He deserves better than that. But as a true freshman, he was a beast. And then they get the transfer from Colorado, right out of the Montana Lemonis Craig, right, who was the spring game hero for Colorado. And the staff really believes this is a plug and play system where they can take, different wide receivers and they can just fill and duplicate the success that, they've had there with some good wide receiver runs under Jed Fish.
Yeah, and these are legit like you said, these are legit wide receivers, right? McMillan is. You could make the argument that he's probably one of the best. He's a top 3 or top 5 true sophomore wide receiver heading into this year, probably. Right.
Oh
So
yeah.
Dorian Singer was a big loss, but look, that was a big get for them to get Montana Lamonius Craig. I mean, as a big body guy, I mean, I think he fits well in there. I like Jaden Delora a lot, actually. I think, yeah, he turned the ball over quite a bit last year. I mean, if you're looking at interceptions per game, fumbles per game, right? The turnover. Look, I mean, if your turnover luck changes even a little bit this year and you keep that high powered offense, they brought in a lot of transfers on defense. Maybe they get a little bit better there. Like this could be kind of a team that I think could catch some teams sleeping for sure this year.
Yeah, absolutely. With
But
Jaden
I
Delora, I mean, real quick about Delora before we move on. Um, Apparently he's had a really good offseason. He's done what he's needed to do to become more consistent, right? Down in and down out. Obviously, he's going to take risks, like you said, which you want him to do, and you want him to play, free and exciting like he does. But he should be talked about in that same, not in the same tier as Caleb Williams, right? And Michael Penix, but in terms of the better quarterbacks in this conference in the Pac-12, he's absolutely right up there with Cam Rising and some of those other guys. Like I think, I like him.
Yeah. So the over under is at 5. And the schedule I think is not. I don't think it's that crazy. But I think in the Pac-12, a lot of the schedules are similar because it's kind of tiered out, right? You got like 6 teams that are like can actually compete for the Big 12 title. Then you got another like tier of 6 teams that maybe aren't so amazing, right? Or maybe like there's 3 tiers. There's like your bottom, I'm gonna say bottom 2 teams, and then you got like 3 teams, and then you got the rest of your teams up top. So they draw, of course, Washington, USC, Oregon State, UCLA, Utah. That, those are games that they're not supposed to win, but I could see them pulling out one maybe 2. They get Mississippi State out of conference, going to Mississippi State. That's gonna be a really tough game. So I have this. I have it as a push. I have them at 5 wins, which again would be another good season for Arizona, right? And like, I think Jaden Delora, likely this won't be his last year unless he really just pops off big time. So I think you could get him again for another year next year, and I think that'd be really awesome. And then maybe next year's the year when they can actually stack some more guys defensively. And they brought in like, was it 4 or 5 transfers on the defensive line? And they weren't necessarily like awful, they were really awful last year on the defensive side of the ball, as you can see, giving up 37 points per game. But I mean, hopefully these guys in the D line that they brought in the transfers are a little bit better. I don't think that they necessarily are. But like, okay, so the linebacker core though, they got a little bit decimated there, but I think they recovered a little bit in the transfer portal at the linebacker spot. Including Justin Flo from Oregon. I mean, if you're a recruiting guy, you definitely know who that guy is. He is a absolute monster. Just never worked out for him at Oregon, but maybe his athleticism and his physical skill set can provide some use on that Arizona defense. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this defense? Did they get better? I don't know. Are they still going to be pretty bad?
I don't know how much worse you can really get. I don't think they're going to take a step
Yeah.
back because, but I do think they kind of lose a lot of players, like especially on the defensive line. But it's not like those players are very good, anyways. I know, one with the LSU, one with the USC. Keon Barr is like on the screen there. He's actually a good player. He was good for them. He's gonna be starter for USC as well. But everyone else, I don't think they're really too bummed they're missing on. They brought in some guys right from Power 5 teams. You got a UCLA guy, you got a Colorado guy, you got an Indiana guy, a Georgia guy. So it's guys that have the size, and that was really their problem last year. I mean, they give up 5.5 yards per attempt, right? So like that's not really what you want to see from a defense. So I think they brought in some beef to be in there. So worst case scenario, you just have bodies and just large humans that can hopefully be a little bit better around sport. Like you said, Justin Flo at linebacker can maybe provide some spark plays. I don't even know if he'll start. He's gonna play for sure, but he's got to stay healthy and prove to the staff that he can play consistent down in and down out. Jacob Manu is a sophomore. He seems to be pretty good, taking that next step in spring and now into fall camp. Cornerback, I like Ephesians Prasak, right? He's a stud, 6'3", NFL tools, super talented there. Dylan Wyatt, a guy from Cal Poly, seems to be getting better every practice. Guy the staff was pretty high on getting him from Cal Poly. Obviously needs time to adjust to a Power 5, team there in practices, but he seems like he's the guy there. And then safeties, they've got some interesting competition. Genesis Smith is pretty dynamic there, but is he ready yet? Who knows? We'll see. I think if they're a little bit better, I think this over is going to hit. Now it worries me from taking it. All right, five wins. I see 5-7. The problem is I think this team will be better than last year. And so conventional wisdom says, well, if they're better than last year, and last year they were 5-7, they'll go 6-6, 7-5, make a bowl game. But I think with some of the schedule dynamics, with the improving Pac-12, I don't really know. I don't see it as a play. I'd like to lean the over just because I think the team's going to be better. But I'm not going to touch it in terms of actually putting money down on it.
Let's talk about Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham in his first year. I mean, you lost Emory Jones. Who cares? Jaden Rashada last week was announced the starting quarterback of this team. And that came as a shock to a lot of people, including members of this show, aka myself. I was shocked, first of all, because all I heard was like really good things about Bourget Bourgeois, Trenton Bourgeois or Bourget. I think it's Bourget. I know Drew Pine's been hurt, so I was like, oh, maybe Jaden Rashad takes over Drew Pine's spot on the depth chart. But man, the fact that he is starting day one for this team, it tells me that they might have a guy, and it's not going to come without growing pains for sure. But look, last year, the coaching staff gave up. They did completely. That's not going to be the case this year, right? You got new coaching staff, a lot of new pieces though. Was it 50 new scholarship players in this team? Gosh, lots of transfers. So I don't know, especially like wide receiver. I think they're actually fine at wide receiver. I think
the group
like better than people think, right? Elijah Badger was pretty good for them. Gio Sanders, get that guy on the field. I don't know. I think this offense could show some flashes for sure, especially if Jaden Rashada is that guy. Florida fans are going to be shaking their head if he starts popping off big time. Yeah, when they lose, they lost in the O-line a little bit, but they got like 6 transfers on the offensive line, so they obviously saw that as a need. They went in there. I think Aaron Frost might be pretty decent from Nevada. He's going to probably play there right tackle if I had to guess, maybe guard, but I think he's going to play right tackle for them. So it's really tough to evaluate this team, for me at least. There's just so many pieces that are coming in. I do believe in Kenny Dillingham, though. I think that was a good hire.
Oh, I thought it was a great hire. And I think, talking about that O-line, I do think it's not going to help Jaden Rashada, especially breaking in, a young quarterback. You'd love for him to have, trust in his O-line. Like you said, they brought in some guys. So obviously they addressed it. And how consistent will they be? How deep are they? If they had to bring in 6 guys. The problem there is the good part is Kenny Dillingham, we know, has had success with below average offensive lines. I mean, if you look back to when he was at Florida State, that was a terrible offensive line, and they put up numbers him and when he was there. But yeah, I think as an Arizona State fan, I think the win column doesn't super matter. It's about his Jaden Rashada guy and Kenny Dillingham himself as well. I think that's what you're going to be looking for. If you make a bowl game, you make a bowl game. I think we'll learn real quick about this team and Jaden Rashada. Week 2, Oklahoma State. That's an awesome game. Oklahoma, like we talked about, the Pac-12 did a real good job of finding some out of conference exciting games to play in with Arizona, Mississippi State, and then Arizona State playing Oklahoma State. Jake Smith declared ineligible, was tough for the wide receiver group, but it's still a good group. Like, it's deep, like you said. Xavier Guillory is a guy I want to highlight from Idaho State. Sounds like he was a hit there. He might be their wide receiver 1 alpha in the group that Jaden Rashada can lean on. And then even their tight end too, Jalen Conyers, is a good player.
Very good player.
and he'll be Jaden Rashada's best friend there. You know, a big trustworthy tight end, and then also got Bryce Peter behind him. Has looked well. Has looked really well as well there. So offensively, you know, Kenny Dillingham got some pieces there. Should be a fun group. You know, defensively, last year was bad. I mean, you see all that red right on the right side of your screen there. I mean, that was about as accurate as it could be because the coaching was bad, the players were bad, the scheme was. I mean, everything needs to be changed. And they got some defense in the secondary. You know, they got some pieces there with Ro Torrance and Demetrius Ford at corner, and then Jordan Clark. You know, they're talented, or they're veteran. You know, nickel there. But we'll see. What do you think about defense?
Uh, Look, I think they did their best, right? I think they're lacking big time in the interior defensive line and also the linebacking core, which to me normally screams red flag. It really does normally. But I will say, because this um conference is such a quarterback heavy conference, you have to prioritize getting to the quarterback. And I think they have some edge talent there. I mean, am I wrong there? I think they might have some guys on the edge that can get to the quarterback, you know.
They almost have too many guys. I think they're even talking about moving some guys, you know, from defensive end into the interior because I don't know if they trust the depth there either.
Yeah, so in the secondary, I mean, it can't get a whole lot worse than it was last year. Again, like we have on the screen, Will Torrance, Jordan Clark. Those are good guys to have. I think they really like Xavier Alford from USC. He looks pretty good, I guess. That's what I've been hearing.
Well,
And
so Xavier Alford sounds
oh,
like
he
he's
was
not gonna have
yep,
eligibility. Again, one of those other
like
players that
that.
transferred.
But Chris Edmonds, I've
Yep,
also been hearing looked very, very good in camp as well.
he's
So
back. Shamari Simmons is the guy from Austin P that's probably gonna be alongside
yeah.
Edmonds.
So yeah, Xavier Alford, even though like you said, even though he's out, I don't have a problem there. Maybe the depth, that's more of a depth concern, I'd say, having Xavier Alford not play. But I think the secondary, it'll be a little bit better. But for me, this pick, I lean under. The schedule is pretty brutal. To me, that's the thing that makes this tough evaluation as well as the schedule, right? Again, like you said, Oklahoma State week 2, Fresno State. That's not bad. Mikey Keene over there. You got a coach over there that knows how to coach football games in the Mountain West. I'll tell you that. And then USC, Washington, Utah, UCLA, Oregon. I mean, even Arizona. They get them at home. Feels like the only like really really good team that you're missing on here is Oregon State. You know, like that. So luckily they draw, but they don't. They also don't draw Stanford either. And that
Yeah.
if you're in the Pac-12 and you don't draw Stanford, that's tough. That's a team that you want to draw on this year, especially. So I lean under. What say you?
Uh, you know, I think 5's a really good line. I would say the under just because I think 4-8 is a more better possibility than 6-6. If you're talking about like getting a better line, I think you know Jaden Rashada, you have no idea what you're gonna get there. Really, there's gonna be a lot of ups and downs. But to be honest, it's a really interesting schedule because you do have 8 home games, right? So like, and coaching, you just assume it's gonna take a huge upgrade and improvement on both sides of the ball and player buy-in. Hopefully, is better. You know, they got a bunch of 50 new people, like you said, are coming in. I think Arizona State, I was expecting them to be in a lot worse shape than I found them out to be. Right, I was expecting to be like a pretty brutal roster situation, and it's not great. Obviously, Kenny Dillingham has his work cut out for him, but it's definitely an interesting team. I'm gonna say push. I think 5 wins is kind of where they're gonna be at.
Yeah, and the spring game wasn't ugly. I'll say that, and that's a credit to Dillingham and his staff there. It was not is okay. It's not as ugly as I thought it was going to be. So
Mm.
credit to him there. Californication. Let's talk about California. Justin Wilcox and the boys, right? This might be a tough team this year. It actually more so is the schedule. Brutal schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, week 1, road game at North Texas. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
What's the connection between California and North Texas? I mean, I get
I
it if you're
actually,
UCLA and you're gonna play an away game at San Diego State, like that's fine, but North Texas. I mean, I love it though. I love the home and homes with G5 schools. I love that.
Yeah. And then you get Auburn week 2. Yikes. And then this talk about this poll, right? In the Pac-12, right? Washington, Oregon State, Utah, USC, Oregon, UCLA. Does it get any worse than that? And you got to go to UCLA, you got to go to Oregon, you got to go to Utah, you got to go to Washington. What? That's so brutal. And like really like the one lock game that you can like really count on winning is Stanford, and you have to play at Stanford, right? It's like,
Well,
so
well,
even
and
then,
Stanford has that game marked on their schedule. They're like, let's
oh
win a
yeah,
Pac-12 game, and it's gonna be against California. I think, yeah, I'm pounding the under here. I'm not gonna lie. The schedule dynamics is brutal, and it sounds like Matthew is too here.
yeah.
And I like Justin Wilcox. I think he's a really, really good coach. They got a new offense coordinator coming in. Sam Jackson's a really fun quarterback. He's
I
a
like
very
their whole
talented guy.
quarterback room. I actually like
Yeah,
their whole
yeah.
quarterback
Ben
room.
Finley has had experience. Fernando Mendoza is an interesting guy as well. But I just don't see it with this team. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, like, look, their offensive line. I've talked to you about this before, and I believe your opinion on this is that this offensive line might be a little bit more stable than it was last year. But are Barrett Miller and Matthew Wyckoff going to really, really fix this thing?
well,
I mean,
well, Matthew Sindrick coming back from injury it helps a lot. He's going
yes,
to stabilize the center room there. And they have a new online coach, which usually is a good sign when a team struggles offensive line. Typically I trust Justin Wilcox to fill that position with a good O-line coach. And they got solid skill position room. I mean, I like their wide receiver group. Jeremiah Hunter, I think he's a really, really talented player.
yep,
Brian Hightower is a fun guy from Illinois, was at Miami as well. Marquise Montgomery, junior college guy, had a big scrimmage there, was a star there. And then Taj Davis also, pushing for reps. And then they got an okay tight end, Jack Andrews. I mean, plus Jaden Knott, right? He's probably their best offensive player. Focal point will be through him, especially if the O line can help him out and create some holes in the run game for him.
yeah. Defensively, this I think it'll improve defense. Like on paper, it should improve defensively, right? You get Brett Johnson back finally, right? Let's hope that nothing else happens to him. I like him at D tackle. Linebacker maybe isn't so terrible. Is David Reese going to be good from Florida? I mean, I think so. The secondary was the thing that was brutal, right? You definitely missed a guy like Eli Hicks last year for sure. And I don't know. I think they like Craig Woodson, but then it's very obvious that they were lacking the secondary because of all the transfers that they brought in there versus transfers that they brought in at other positions. Good things that I've heard. Heard good things about Matthew Littlejohn.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
that's
Yep. Yep.
Matthew Littlejohn. It's not me, Matthew, having a Littlejohn. It's just that's his name, Littlejohn. Matthew Littlejohn is a nickel there. I've heard some good things about him at camp, and I don't know. Maybe Patrick McMorris can be pretty good. On paper, it should be better. I mean, look at if you look at all the red right on California's defensive side of the ball, you can see that it is all in the passing, right? Teams were just throwing the ball around the yard on them, right? On average, throwing the ball 37 times a game because guess what? They could. And 65% completion percentage, 282 yards passing a game, and only getting the quarterback 3% of the time on per drop back. So um, that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough. So, and yeah, I don't know. And it's not even like they were playing mobile quarterbacks, right? Like you can see the drop back rate, right? Like was only at 51%, right? But all that means is that quarterbacks were just sitting very comfortable in the pocket, slinging the ball all around the yard, right? When your pass attempts is high like that and your drop back rate is pretty actually low, that just tells you that quarterbacks against them were very, very comfortable. So, uh, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they got a chance to get to the quarterback this year, but I'm taking this under along there with you. I just don't think they're making a bowl game, but they could win 5 games. They totally could. I could see that happening,
Yep.
but I just don't see them making a bowl game this year. I do think Jack Plummer is an underrated loss. I like Sam Jackson, like you said. Ben Finley's fine, but for what Jack Plummer was dealing with last year, he was good. And I have a lot of confidence that he will do well at Louisville this year. So good for him that he gets to go back to maybe a better situation. He's really earned it.
For sure. And I actually like the roster, I don't hate it. I think they filled some nice holes, like you said, in the secondary, which was terrible last year. It sounds like they've kind of hit it pretty hard in the transfer market. I don't know if I love the D line. I think they got some depth there. It doesn't sound like anyone's really, head and shoulders above everybody else, but the worst part, they have a bunch of bodies in the room, which is always a good thing, especially if you're a team like California with the transfer portal now. It's hard to keep depth on the offensive defensive line. The schedule dynamics is brutal. You're breaking in a new quarterback. It's pretty, hit or miss. I mean, they could steal a game from even I like Washington State this year though, but like I can see them beating, Oregon State at home or even like going to Utah and like surprising everybody there. I just don't. 6 wins is really, really hard for me to see with this schedule, like you said. So I'm taking the under there.
Colorado. This is a team that probably one of the most, I'm going to say the most talked about team probably in the offseason in all of college football, which I don't think Colorado fans have ever been able to say ever. Obviously, you hired Deion Sanders as a coach. It's not news to anyone that's watching this video. Okay, it's not news. Everyone knows that. All right. What is shocking though is the absolute massacre turnover of the roster that was this offseason. I don't have the exact numbers for you like on my screen right now, but I'm looking at their depth chart and it looks like there are 4 players from last year's roster that are going to start, and there's 22 guys that are normally out there. So 18 new transfers are being brought in to start. And that's just the ones, right? The twos, I mean, the twos are all transfers. The threes, you got a couple guys that have stayed. I mean, this roster was entirely overhauled. But the guys they actually brought on they're no slouches. Shedeur Sanders is not a terrible quarterback. Maybe he hasn't played at a Power 5 level or, in fact, a Division 1 level at all. But there's a lot of things to like about him. Travis Hunter, obviously, right? I mean, he's number 1 player in the country coming out of high school a couple years ago. Shocked everyone who went to Jackson State. Well, he's back reunited with Deion Sanders at Colorado. So, Kamani McLean's a guy, number 1 corner in the country. He's going to be starting there for them. Savion Washington, you have up there. Alden McCaskill, right, who transferred from help me out here.
Houston.
Yep, absolutely. Cavazier Smoke. I mean, there's Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn, Adam Hopkins, true freshman. These are names that are guys that are pretty decently talented. So the issue is the schedule. It is brutal. It is brutal.
For Colorado.
Yeah, for Colorado. Right. I think, yeah. We'll talk about it relatively, but you go to TCU, right? Team that just played the national championship game. Come on. I know that
you're big underdogs in that game, aren't you?
You're huge underdogs in that game. Nebraska, you get at home, I guess, but that's still, I mean, that's a game you won't be favored in. Colorado State is probably the most underrated team in the Mountain West going into this year.
A rivalry game too with Colorado and Colorado State.
Rivalry game. Clay Milton's back. Torrey Horton. I mean, come on. You got that team could be a lot better than people think. I believe. And then of course you go Oregon, USC. When you play Arizona State, you play them at Arizona State. Stanford. Good job, Colorado. You'll get a win there. Good work. At UCLA, Oregon State, Arizona, I guess you get at home. But again, we talked about Arizona being pretty explosive on offense, which honestly is good for Colorado because they have a pretty decent secondary. That'd probably be the strength of this team, or one of the strengths. At Washington State and at Utah. Like, that's so many games. You're going to be favored in 2 games this entire year. You're going to be favored in 2 games. Now, depending on how the first couple weeks go, but just looking at it like right now, right, if Vegas was to set lines for each of these games, you're favored in 2 games. And the over-under is at 3.5. So can you find another 2 wins? What say you?
Well, the thing is how do you power rate Colorado if you're Vegas? Like, they had a very, very hard time, I'm sure, debating on how to power rank them. So, like, with their lines, you really don't know. They could come out and, like, would it surprise me if they made a bowl game? Yes. But like with the talent on paper on this team, I mean, it's not super, super like impossible, along with the really, really good staff that I think he brought in. Right, offensively, you got Sean Lewis, who was a head coach at Kent State, who's got the up tempo, spread the field crazy wide, right, very flashy. But they also have physical based run with an offensive line. You bring in the offensive line coach from Kent State with Sean Lewis, and then Charles Kelly from defensive coordinator from Alabama, has called plays before at Florida State. He's more of a recruiter. That's where his strength is. But obviously, he's got Nick Saban and Pete Golding influence under him. I don't know.
Well, how about
It's
Mike
hard.
Zimmer as an analyst?
Yeah, yeah. So a
I,
lot of I don't know. I kind of lean the over here. I mean, I'm not gonna take it because it scares the shit out of me. But if it's juiced at 3.5, you can get it at plus 115, which is pretty good value. The hard part, like you said, is the schedule. I think they're gonna upset one team this year, like really upset one team. But then they could lose, game to Colorado State, or they can lose to Stanford or at Arizona State, or whatever it may be. Um, I don't know. I think this is going to be super. I mean, everyone's going to watch that week 1 game, and especially week 2 against Nebraska. The problem is if they start 1-6 or 1-5, right, going into Arizona State, it could get scar. It could get scary. Plus with the injuries, like yes, you brought in 60, 70 new players, but how many of them are ready to play, right? And injuries on the offensive line or at quarterback with Shador Sanders. I mean, behind him and behind the offensive line, there's not much else you can really do, which could really, the wheels could fall off on this Colorado season. A guy I want to talk about is Demoy Kennedy from Bama. He's playing linebacker for him. It sounds like he's been great. He got hurt at Bama. He was a high recruit there, and the staff loved him at Bama. They were really, really upset that they had to lose him to Colorado. And they bring in some other guys like Brandon Gant from FSU. Sounds like Levante Bentley from Clemson is playing pretty well. Jeremiah Brown follows Dion from Jackson State. It sounds like Levante Bentley and Kennedy will be the starters there, but they got a little bit of depth at linebacker. And defensively, they took in 13 defensive linemen. 13. That is a lot of bodies. And they've been pretty bad, last few years at defensive line. It doesn't sound like anyone's really that good. I mean, they got a couple of high upside guys like Saviel Smalls, obviously former 5-star guy at Washington. Leonard Payne is a guy that's got all the tools, but is still pretty raw and still figuring it out. Regardless, you're gonna have some bodies there, but I don't know if anyone you really like. Derek McLennan, maybe Shane Cooks, and an Ivy League guy. I don't know. It's very hard to predict. If you're a Colorado fan, you have to be excited about the future for sure. But who knows what 2023 is going to bring to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I push 3.5 over, too rich, under. I don't know. So to me, I think 3.5. That's a good line. But I think it came out at 4.5. A lot of people think slammed the under there. I think 4.5. I think you lean under for sure. But I'm not touching this because I don't know what it's gonna be. I don't know what it's gonna be. Let's talk about Dan Lanning's Oregon. If you watched our second year coaches video or videos plural, you know that the show's pretty high on Dan Lanning. And well, yeah, they lost some guys last year. But is there a reason to believe that they'll be better? Yeah, sure. Kenny Dillingham's over now coaching at Arizona State, bringing a guy like Will Stein, who's pretty young, had some success, especially throwing the ball. I don't know. What do you think? What say you about the 2023 season of the Oregon Ducks?
Yeah, I think Kenny Dillingham is definitely a big loss. We saw how productive, quarterbacks have been under him recently. The best thing for Bo Nix's career was to come and find Kenny Dillingham here at Oregon. That was a big get, though, bringing Bo Nix back. I mean, everyone, you see the Heisman, Bo for Heisman in New York, all the signs. They got a lot of talent offensively. Bucky Irving's a guy I know we're both super high on him. We've been high on him since in high school. Troy Franklin, wide receiver. Trayshawn Holden is kind of, I think he's super meh from Alabama, but he's a fine guy. Tez Johnson is kind of a super, super speedy guy. And then even freshmen's like Jerion Dickey's come in, Gary Bryant from USC. It's a pretty talented group for sure. I don't know. A 9.5 is a big number. It's a super big number for me. I think with the schedule at Texas Tech is not a cakewalk at all. I know we're both super high on Texas Tech and the future of Joe McGuire's program. Lubbock is not an easy place to play in, especially in early September. You have at Washington and you have at Utah, and then you finish with USC in week 11, and then Oregon, the Civil War, right? You have maybe the last Civil War ever played. Not ever played, but the last Civil War with Oregon State and Oregon in the Pac-12. I almost lean the under. I love this team. I love a lot of the teams at the top of the Pac-12, but that's just a problem. I think they're going to eat each other up. I think they're going to cost the Pac-12 a playoff berth, in its final year, because everyone's going to be 10-2 or 9-3 or whatever it is. Someone has to lose, between Washington and Utah and USC, Oregon. You throw Oregon State, and their teams have to lose, and they all kind of play each other for the most part, with the exception of UCLA, kind of gets a break. But with Oregon, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I do think if they look, for this line, I actually lean over. I lean over 9.5. What's keeping me away from this, right, is a lot of turnover on the offensive line. I think this offensive line could still be good. An issue though, right? You played a pretty good team in Texas Tech on the road week 2, right? So this team doesn't have a whole lot of time to kind of mesh together, right? You're gonna need to be cooking against Texas Tech. I think that's a good team, and that place is gonna be absolutely bouncing. If you don't think Lubbock is gonna be absolutely, the entire city of Lubbock is gonna be at that game. It's gonna be sold out. It's gonna be crazy. And I think breaking in an entire new offensive line could lead to some question marks against the Texas Tech team. But then after that, though, you get quite a bit of time to really get that offensive line set to where you want it to be for like real legit games, because you got Hawaii, Colorado, Stanford, right? Those are games you can manage without great offensive line play. And then you get a bye. And then that's when you go into that stretch. That's pretty tough. So schedule dynamic, it hurts them, but also doesn't hurt them, right? Like if they squeak out of that Texas Tech game, I think this goes over for sure. Yeah, so I do like this over. I'm not gonna take it though. And another reason why you would take a chance in the over maybe is I do think this defense got better. Look, they very clearly prioritized fixing the secondary in the offseason. As you can see, all that red on that defense right there. Yeah, that was Oregon. It was not a very good defense last year in terms of the secondary. Tyree Jackson, you get him, Tasheem Johnson, Evan Williams, Nico Reed, Cole Martin as a true freshman. Which, by the way, Cole Martin.
Yeah.
I think that's a guy that people were not talking about before spring, and I think people are now starting to talk about him. They're going to find a way to get him on the field. I don't know, probably nickel, but we'll see how he actually gets on the field. But he's been playing out of his mind. But I think Dan Lanning very clearly knew what he needed to do, and they went out. They had number 9th rated transfer portal class in the country. It's pretty good. And look, Tosh Lupoi, I think if he gets the right pieces, I think he's going to do fine defensively. I think he's a pretty decent defensive coordinator. Jordan Birch is a guy that they also got as well. Johnny Bones is a really good true freshman that might get some playing time as well in that rotation. So I think this could be a really good team. This could be a really, really, really good team. If Bo Nix has another year and Will Stein can really figure it out again with Bo Nix, like the way that Kenny Dillingham was really able to open up the game, especially with his talent on the offensive side of the ball at your skill positions. Terrence Ferguson's like a good tight end. Gosh, this is a really good team. So I will not be taking the over though.
Yeah, I do think they might even be better than last year. But like I said, the schedule is brutal. I think the Pac-12 in general, even like the middle of the Pac-12 gets substantially better with, I think Washington State gets better. I think Arizona gets a little bit better, even though they don't play Arizona. But the only nice thing, if you're an Oregon fan or if you're Oregon, looking at the back half of the schedule is brutal. But then again, you don't have like all your big games, Oregon State, USC, Utah, Washington. It's all split up, right? It's never back to back. It's never back to back road games. right, which is nice. So I think it's pretty bad. It's pretty tough schedule at the back half, but it's not as bad as it could have been. Obviously, I think at linebacker, you lose Noah Sewell to the NFL with the Chicago Bears now, and he definitely was a really good athlete, good leader on the team. Was he as good as he probably was talked about it? I don't know. I think Justin Jacobs from Iowa is a really interesting player. I know a lot of teams are really high on him, and we obviously know Iowa's linebackers are always pretty damn good. Like you said, defensive line, I think, Brandon Dorlus, it's kind of beast for him. And then even Papo, it's Avamave, right? He returned from injury. He was a former All Pac-12 kind of guy. So hopefully he's back to full strength there. Yeah, I think this team's going to be better. I could totally see them being 12-0. Honestly, I think the best case scenario is 12-0 for this team. But I also see 8-4, right? And that definitely scares me, taking an over at 9.5. And honestly, behind Bo Nix, I mean, Ty Thompson, right? Or he's right, yeah, Ty Thornton or whatever the name is, Ty Thompson.
Ty Thompson.
He's been there forever. It seems like they've been kind of waiting for him, take the next step as a former 5-star guy. I don't know if he's quite ready yet. Behind Bo Nix, I think there's a reason why they wanted Bo Nix to come back so badly. Obviously, Bo Nix is a good player, true freshman guy. Season. Yeah, but I think that's why I'm not gonna put any money on the over there. But definitely a really good team, real good job by Dan Lanning. Obviously, moving to the Big 12, the Big 10 next year, and after that, they're gonna be pretty competitive.
So did you lean over?
I lean the under.
Oh, you lean under. Oh,
I just think, yeah, I like the team. I love the team. The schedule scares me.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. The Beavs. Oregon State. We're talking about Oregon State. Gosh, I really like this team.
I'll be honest. I'm gonna be rooting for them. I mean, I love Minnesota, right? But right below them, I'm gonna be rooting for Oregon State, just because of everything that shook out. I think, how awesome would that be if Oregon State and Jonathan Smith come out and they fucking win the Pac-12? I mean, now are they gonna? I don't know. They're definitely a team that could. I think they were damn good last year, and they're damn good this year too. Yeah, I'm just rooting so hard for them, and Jonathan Smith there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be rooting hard because I'm taking the over. The over. And you know what? And I wasn't going to until all this Pac-12 BS started happening, and I'm like, gosh, does this team want it that much more this year? I mean, DJU finally won the job, but guess what? If he goes down, Ben Branson's coming in, and he's winning 8 games, 10 or 9 games, 10 games, 11 games. His offensive line is almost entirely back. It's going to be good. It's going to be a very good offensive line. They're big, they're physical, they're mean, they're nasty, right? And that's what we like. Luke Musgrave is kind of a big loss, but they didn't really actually use him all that much. He was a great blocker. That's what I'll say about him. But I think they're fine there, right? They use a lot of times use more than one tight end, and I think they're deep enough there to where they can get around it. I'll say the downside of this team. Well, one, you're probably going to take a step back on the defensive side of the ball. They were a phenomenal defensive team last year, and I don't think it's going to be the same level of talent as it was last year. But a wide receiver, you're really small. I mean, I think their first 3 guys, their starting 3, I think are all going to be under 6 foot. I think Jahmai East cracks the starting lineup. Maybe if he doesn't week 1, then I think he will get more time because I think he is just bigger. But Anthony Gould's good. Josiah Irish. I mean, they're a little smaller. But guess what? They're fine, dude, and they're gonna run the ball this year. Oh, they're gonna run the ball. And anyone who follows the show knows how I feel about Damian Martinez. He's a dude. He is a dude. So I'm so excited for him this year. Defensively, it was absolutely electric last year. The D-line returns nearly everyone, which you love to hear. And their run defense was also very good last year. It was very, very good. But the D-line, everyone returns. And what I like about it, too, it's more deep than it is top-heavy, right? Like, you got a lot of guys in there that can really plug up holes, know their jobs. You could rotate a lot of fresh guys in there.
Well, and they got different body types, too, especially on the outside. Your outside linebackers, that are stepped up on line of scrimmage. You got guys that can stop the run. You got Oluwaseyi Omatoshu. I think he's a guy that can come in on third down and rush the passer really, really well.
Yeah. And look, their out of conference is manageable. It's tough, but it's manageable.
Wow, I
And
wouldn't call
then
it tough. I wouldn't call it tough. I
okay,
mean, it's at San Jose
relative
State and it's
relative
San Diego State.
okay, relative to okay. Yeah, maybe tough wasn't the right word, but relative to what some of these other out of conferences are, I'd say that
Yeah,
it's no slouch. Let's not sleep on San Diego State, right? Let's not sleep on San Jose State, right? We just saw what they did yesterday. So
that's true.
but I did take this over. And also when you draw Cal, Colorado, and Stanford in conference, that's 3 wins right there. And then all I'm asking, give me 3 more. Give me just 3 more. So I think there's a lot of good teams, but you get a lot of these games at home. Utah at home, UCLA at home, Washington at home.
Yeah.
I think they're out for blood. I do think that this is tough though because I think linebacker they lost to Omar Spates, who was actually a difference maker. We say linebacker is really replaceable, but like Omar Spates was a legit difference maker, and he'd been there for a long time and he was experienced. Um, I don't know, but I still think the secondary is pretty talented. I think Katana Oladapo is going to be pretty good at safety. Bummer that Skylar Thomas tore his ACL, but look, Trent Bray in his first year as DC last year, he was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's run it back. Give me the Beavs. Give me the over 8.5. Will I regret it? Maybe, but let's go.
Yeah, like I said, I do lean over. I'm not gonna take it like you are. I wish I could ride with you, and I love, riding Oregon State. Maybe it'll be a team week to week where I go, this is a team that's just beating the spread every time. Vegas hasn't adjusted yet. But I think the 8.5 is pretty high, and for Oregon State, you love that, right? And it's because they're out of conference, but they do get the top 4 teams in the Pac-12, and so you got to, in order to go 9-3, you got to steal one from the top of them. I'm looking at Utah. I'm looking at UCLA week 7, right before the bye week. Obviously, Oregon is always going to be a tough game with the Civil War there. The problem is you also could slip up at Washington State week 4, right? In the look ahead game to Utah. I know we both like Jake Dickert. I like Washington State so much, though, that I might be throwing some money on that, where my mouth is for sure. And the only thing that concerns me about this offense, love the O-line, love Damian Martinez. And I even love the DJU. I think he fits Oregon State really well in terms of like a mentality type person, like a guy that's, been super talented, but he's also kind of been thrown under the bus for 2 years now. I the small wide receivers, I don't know how accurate TJU is and has been. And with the small wide receivers, you got the small catch frame. I don't know. I think that's something to definitely look at, even though there's going to be a lot of separation for him probably, but I don't know. Yeah. Other than that, defensively, they're going to take a step back a little bit, but I still trust, the whole roster there. Like you said, they got an interesting guy, Calvin Hart from Illinois, who I like as well. But yeah, I like Oregon State. I love them, rooting for them, but I'm not tempted to take the over with them.
Look, yeah, I get it. DJU might not be like a dun, 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 dun. He might not be like an NFL guy, right? But I, he's good enough. He's good enough. And in a quarterback heavy league, give me a team that wants to play some defense.
Well, and I think he's ready. I think he's going to be willing to use his legs, which he can do. He's a big bodied. I mean, the read option with him and Damon Martinez, like on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, like you're going to pick that up, right? With the good offensive line and everyone else there. But yeah.
Stanford. Let's talk about Stanford. Gosh, I love Troy Taylor.
Troy Taylor, we love you, man.
Gosh, I love Troy Taylor. The trees. The Cardinals. Yeah, anyways, yeah, I love Troy Taylor, but this team blows chunks, talent wise. It does. It's not good. You lose Tanner McKee to the NFL. I mean, you lost so much on the offensive line. They were not they were okay on the offensive line last year. I don't know. Maybe Stanford fans will disagree with that. I didn't watch as much Stanford football as maybe some of those guys did, but from what I'm looking at, 6 of their top offensive linemen left, including Drake Nugent, Hinton, Roos, Warnerbrook. I mean, those are all guys that could have potentially started for sure, and we'll be starting at other Power 5 teams. So what does that tell you? And they just didn't do a whole lot in the transfer portal either. I mean, they lost 21 guys and they brought in 4 because look, it's just so hard to replace with those academic restrictions. Yeah, the replacement at left tackle is gonna be a 6'4", 265-pound guy. Yikes.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing is, like, yes, they have 4 transfers, which sucks, and they lost a good amount, right? But all of them are gonna play, right? Like a couple of them on the offensive line. I got a linebacker, obviously the quarterback, probably gonna be Justin Lamson from Syracuse. The guy I really like is Benjamin Yurosek on tight end. Now the problem is when your best player on your team is a tight end and it's not Dalton Kincaid or it's not, Brock Bowers. That's not always the best, thing. But at least if you're Justin Lamson, you can use your tight ends. I know Stanford's like to use them. The problem is I think David Shaw, obviously he was really good for a while there. I think he steps down. And I think it was kind of about time. I think that coaching staff. I'm not going to compare it to Herm Edwards and Arizona State, but because he doesn't deserve that. But I think that coaching staff had kind of run its course there. I think, they were kind of falling out of, the movement of college football. And obviously at Stanford, it's not easy to stay relevant with all the restrictions and even with NIL now. Like who knows, all the loopholes that Troy Taylor and Stanford has to go through. But I'd 3 or 2.5, whatever you get it at, it's tough to take the under just because it's so few games. I mean, you're 2-10 is kind of hard to do, right? When even at Hawaii is a tough game. Sacramento should be a win, but then you're just asking for one.
At Hawaii is a tough
should be
game
a win
for them. They're only 4.5 point favorites. They're only 4.5 point favorites.
Yeah, and Hawaii but they do have. I'm so sorry. They do have Hawaii. They do have film on Hawaii. They've seen Hawaii. Hawaii gave their best punch to Vanderbilt, and obviously they look kind of fine. They hung in there with the SEC team, but yeah, we'll see. I don't know. You're just asking for them to steal 1, maybe 2 games against Cal. You got Colorado, Washington State, Arizona. I guess so, yeah. But how about Notre Dame in Week 13? But that'd be the type of game Notre Dame would lose. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of unproven players. Nothing to be excited about.
We talked about stealing games. I'm going to tell you they're not going to do that. Give me the under 2.5. That is probably the only time I'm ever going to take a line like that in my entire life. And I'm getting at plus 130 in some places. Yeah, this town, it's just so bad. It's just so bad. They might be the worst Power 5 team out there. This is like Colorado's roster last year. Plus you lose Tanner McKee, right? 4 transfers. Come on. Like, can you loosen up a little bit on the academic restrictions? Just a little bit. Like, help them out, man. So I don't know. And you go to Colorado. Gosh. Give me the under, man. Give me the under. I don't know. Can you talk me out of it?
No. I mean, other than the fact that 2 wins is not a lot, and like very easily, you get one team like Colorado or Cal or a team like Arizona has some injuries, and you can, go out and steal a game from them. Regardless, I do think the future of Stanford, I mean, it's murky in terms of the conference they're going to be playing in, right? You hope that maybe the Big 12 or the ACC and Mountain West, whatever, can bail you out. But I do like Troy Taylor. We talked about him recruiting all offseason. He did a really good job. The problem is none of those guys can help him this year, and he needs help bad. But yeah, I think I'm interested to see his offense, right? His play calling, his schemes, and all that. But I don't think you can judge Troy Taylor off of just year 1 with Stanford. What it's going to be.
No. Sorry, he was dealt a hard deck of hand. But hey, recruiting trail, he's doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about USC. We're back.
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, we got to see him play yesterday, right? So you're over under bet. You're not gonna be able to bet this. You're not gonna be able to take this. But definitely some takeaways from that game for sure. But I'll just talk about, just on paper a little bit before we get into like that game that we saw yesterday. They were They actually acquired a lot of talent in this offseason. They acquired a lot of talent. Yeah, I get they lost Jordan Addison, but in the aggregate, the receiver room looks awesome, I think.
Boy, does it.
Boy, does it. Dorian Singer, awesome. Mario Williams, awesome. Taj Washington, awesome. As we saw yesterday, Zach Branch, oh my gosh, is that kid electric? Yeah, sure, you lose Travis Dye at running back. Oh, wait, we have Austin Jones. Oh, wait, we got Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, come on. They got some good transfers on the offensive line, too. So you lost some guys on the offensive line, but in the aggregate, it still might be fine. I don't think Caleb Williams needs much. Caleb Williams does not need much on the offensive line. He just needs a little bit. The defense is the thing that everyone's looking at. Like, can they improve? Is Alex Grinch a bum? Is he not? I won't talk about yesterday, but
yes,
on
but
on paper, they're more talented this year than they were
yes,
last year.
it's the most talented Alex Grinch has had as a defensive coordinator. Now will produce. I mean, and it's going to be, which is kind of embarrassing. Although it's a fine team. 3 levels, they got depth. They got like impact players at all 3 levels. I think it'll take some time. I think you circle at Notre Dame in week 7 is when they really need to be ready for it in terms of Sam Hartman coming in there. Like we saw how well he played in Dublin, Ireland, which is awesome. I do think Arizona the week prior and Jaden Delore is going to test them a lot as well, which will be good for them. The bye week, I don't love the bye week early, and I know it gives them an extra week to get those like defensive players acclimated, whatever else. But this is not like you're breaking a new quarterback. It's not like you're. I like bye weeks middle of the year, middle to back half, But anyways, defensively, Bear Alexander, we'll see how much you get from him. Obviously, everyone loves him, and he was obviously highly rated player and productive player at Georgia as a true freshman. Jack Sullivan sounds like he's been a guy from Purdue that came over. He'll be the defensive tackle. And Solomon Byrd, right? He's been the surprise of fall camp there, and he's kind of pushed Corey Foreman, impact former 5-star number 1 player in the country, Corey Foreman, back down the depth chart, which I guess is a good thing if you're, better than a very talented player like that. I know you know much about Anthony Lucas, coming up from Texas A&M, going to be on the edge and can slide into defensive end as well.
He's a good ball
Jamil
player.
Muhammad. Yeah, Jamil Muhammad from Georgia State. They really, really impressed with him. And then obviously, the story out of the linebacking core with Taka Curtis, right? He's a true freshman guy. He'll be next to Mason Cobb. Mason Cobb's a guy that was highly rated on the transfer market as well. Taka Curtis is a true freshman guy. Hopefully he should be getting better every year. It'll be an improvement over Shane Lee. I can tell you that. And, I love Shane Lee's heart, and I love the way, he plays and runs. He's not a very good linebacker at the Power 5 level. And even Eric Gentry is getting healthy as well. Secondary, I'll say Domani Jackson finally seems like he's putting it together there in year 2 there. Former 5-star guy. Siari Wright, another highly rated guy. Sounds like those 2 guys are going to start over the highly coveted transfer in Christian Roland Wallace we talked about earlier from Arizona. He's pretty darn good, but he'll come off the bench. He can play outside corner, he can play inside corner as well. At nickel with Jalen Smith being there, him and Christian Wall and Roland Wallace will rotate a little bit. And then Kalen Bullock is awesome, right? He's a real, real good player, probably their best defensive player returning on the team. And then Max Williams and Preston Shaw, are serviceable safeties. On paper, like you said, it looks like a solid defense. That's going to be the question all year. Can they step up defensively? Can they stop the run? Right? Can they get off the field on 3rd and 4th down like they didn't do last year? And then, can they stop the run? I don't know. I think I hope they do, because if they don't, it'd be a waste of Caleb Williams for sure, because he's so talented. And I want to see him in the college football playoffs, and I want to see him being able to compete against your Georgias, your Alabamas, Michigans, Ohio States, because I think that'd be awesome. And that's their potential this year. I mean, yes, they're over on win totals 10, which is pretty damn high. But, I mean, the ceiling is 12-0, 14, 15-0 in a national championship. Are they ready quite yet? I don't know. But if the defense improves like we think it's gonna, or like it should, you got to be pretty optimistic about this team.
Yeah, the reason I don't take the over 10, right? And I just think it's a good line to push for me. I'm not gonna take the over, not taking the under. or don't lean either way. It's mostly because like defensively last year, yeah, they weren't great last year, but also they benefited a lot from turnover luck, like a lot.
Mhm.
So if that regresses at all, yeah, they could have a better defense, maybe like marginally, with Alex Grinch there. Who, yikes. I don't know that actually the production that they get from the defense is that great because of the turnover luck and having it regress in the direction that you don't want it to go. So, this is a good team though. Zachariah Branch. Oh my goodness, that dude is ridiculous. He's better than Evan Stewart right now. He's better than. I mean, he just from watching one game yesterday against San Jose State, I could see that this kid just moves differently. He just moves differently.
Mhm.
He's ridiculous. I'm a little upset that he didn't come to Texas A&M because he would be
Real
starting
quick,
day one.
over under. You gonna lean over, lean under? What do you got?
No, I'm not leaning. I push at 10.
All right. Oh, see, I think that's interesting. I almost like the under because and I've kind of had that with a bunch of the top end teams at the Pac-12. Damn it, I'm so sorry. I just don't trust them to win all the games, like those top 4 games, and then USC also does play at Notre Dame in the middle of the year, which will be a good test for sure. It's at plus 100, right, for the over, or for the I don't know. For whatever it is, I like the under here. I'm not going to take it, but I hope I'm wrong. For college football's sake, for Caleb Williams' sake, I hope I'm wrong. And then for Alex Grinch's sake, because he's going to be crucified if they do not, win 10, 11 games and make it back to the Pac-12 championship and hopefully win this time.
Yeah, agreed. UCLA Bruins. Let's talk about them. Last year, going 9-4. They had a pretty good season. Last year was kind of like the culmination of like, hey, this team's got a lot of talents, an experienced quarterback, Chip Kelly, and how whatever year he was in. Uh, I think it was all about, hey, let's make something out of this. And I think he did. I think he had a good year. Offensively, they were phenomenal. They're phenomenal. DTR was great. Zach Charbonnet was awesome. Uh, Defensively, they were not all that great at all. But this is a team that's maybe has a little bit better defense than they did last year. So is there reason to believe that this team could be better? CD, go.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's almost going to be like offensively, at least. It's like they were super consistent with DTR and Zach Charbonnet in terms of down to down, but I think they're going to be a little bit more explosive, right? With Carson Steele coming in with J. Michael Sturgeons from Cal, who's been awesome. Obviously, Jake Bobo's a big loss, but you want to talk about explosive plays? Like he's not an explosive guy. He's a very consistent down to down guy. Kyle Ford from USC is there, but it's gonna be a pretty good room wide receiver wise. Carson Steele, all signs are pointing to him being really, really good. And then DJ Harden behind him. The quarterback battle, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't really care yet. They don't really need to figure it out until week 4, which I guess is pretty quick. But I think Ethan Garbers I can win with. Absolutely. Dante Moore is obviously the fun one. With the true freshman guy coming in, obviously uber talented. Makes plays that Ethan Garbers can't make, but can he make them every play? And that's where the consistency comes in with Ethan Garbers being there. The past couple of years. Like you said, offensive line lost John Gaines, lost another to the NFL. Another one graduated. They took a ton of transfers coming in. Right, Duke Clemens is back at center. He's a beast. Derek DiGiorgio, right? DiGiorgio at right tackle. He's back. And then even the Old Dominion guy, Kadir Kunta. Sounds like they really love him at left tackle. The problem is there's no depth. I don't know if they love their depth at offensive line, which also is what scares me from taking the over, which is why I'm just going to lean the over because I think the schedule is super favorable, right? They only get, they get Utah, at Oregon State, and at USC. Everything else is super, super winnable, including Washington State at home, right? At Colorado at home if you're scared of them. But yeah, I don't know. What about you?
So it was going to be a game time decision when I got to here. Whether I was going to take the over or not. I'm going to take it. I think the schedule is way too favorable, and this team is too talented. I don't care who's starting at quarterback. Dante Moore, Ethan Garbers. I literally do not care who's starting at quarterback. Chip Kelly's going to figure it out. They're pretty good at receiver. Like you said, they're fine at offensive line. Maybe not so deep. That could be an issue. But I don't think early on they're not going to be really tested. They're not going to really pushed around. I think Utah's that first game that they get really pushed around. So, look, 3 out of conference games. You go 3-0 there. Stanford, Colorado, Cal at home, ASU at home. Right, that's 7. Give me 2 more at Arizona, maybe. I don't know. I think this is a good team, and I think offensively they might take a step down because I do think DTR was really good, but I think they're fine. I think they're fine at quarterback. I think this is a team that people kind of just forget about this team. I don't know. So I think this is probably one of the most favorable schedules in the Pac-12 for sure. And if you're going to give me UCLA with that kind of talent, 8.5, I'll take it for sure.
Yeah, they got a new defensive coordinator, from the Ravens, Dan Lin. He's a young guy. Sounds like the kids like him. It'll be interesting to see how they actually produce because they weren't great last year, especially on the back end of their defense. Kenny Churchwell's been in the nickel, I think, most of the time. He's moving to deep safety over top, which will be interesting. It sounds like he's thriving in that position, but other than that, you got Latu coming back. Latu. He's got 10.5 sacks. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for the team. I think they're gonna miss DTR though. I'm not gonna lie. He really put it all together. It was fun to watch him, play super well with them. But yeah.
Yep, I just think Chip Kelly has not had a lot of good defenses in his time, and I think this might be a nice change of pace. Utah. Well, let's talk about it. Kyle Whittingham. Why is he the most underrated coach in the country? Why do people not appreciate him? All he does is win. Yeah. That is all he does. All he does is win. And he lost Dalton Kincaid, Clark Phillips, Braden Daniels.
Those guys were studs. Those 3 guys were awesome, though. Those guys
they're
were
studs,
awesome.
But like the vast majority of this team is back. What do they have? 8 preseason all Pac-12 players on their squad. So let's hear you talk about them. What do you want to know? What should everyone know about Utah?
Well, the big question here, and the reason why I'm not going to touch the over at 8.5 is because, I think their out-of-conference schedule is awesome. And I don't say brutal, I say awesome, because Florida hosting them, getting a revenge game, it's going to be about is Cam Rising healthy, right? For week 1 and week 2. And then week 4, you also have UCLA. So he's got to be healthy early on, get him caught up to speed as much as possible. They kind of knew this was coming, so they did prepare their quarterbacks. Sounds like they have some injuries there too as well. We'll see what happens, this coming Thursday, the 31st. But if Cam Rising is healthy, this is a dangerous team. I think Jaquindon Johnson, you got to replace Tavion Thomas. Again, who's another guy that was really, really good last year for him. You got to replace him. He's a former quarterback. He's kind of in the mold of Roshan Johnson. I don't know if you remember him. He was a former quarterback at Texas and moved over to running back. He's not quite the same, player in terms of bully, bruiser that Roshan Johnson is, but he's a really, really explosive player. He's going to have some big plays for him. On the offensive line, Braden Daniels gone, but the insert true freshman, Spencer Fano. I mean, that is awesome. How many times you see, a guy, it's not named Caden Proctor or,
Will Campbell,
Kelvin Banks. A guy that comes in at Utah and earns a starting left tackle role. I mean, it's not like Utah is a bunch of bums at the offensive line, but it's not like they recruit Caden Proctor either every year. Spencer Fano, I'm really excited to see him. The staff, I know, obviously trust him with everything. Breaking in, probably a new quarterback for week 1. I think at Baylor is a super awesome game. I know I'm high on Baylor, but I'm also high on Utah. Devon Vele, is probably wide receiver 1 there. It seems like Micah Pittman is a slot guy. Pretty good that he comes over. I think he's from Indiana or something. Emory Simmons is the Indiana guy. But he can do a lot of things. He played, deep ball. He did over the middle and short games. He's interesting. The problem is the depth. And also, you talk about losing pass catchers is Dalton Kincaid. I mean, I just watched the USC game from a year ago, and he was so good. He was awesome. So I think they're gonna miss him for sure. But it sounds like Brent Kuth is pretty good if he's healthy. They're not too worried about him. Yeah. What say you?
Are we really doing this again? Are you really going to give me 8.5 with Utah? I don't care that Cam Rising's not playing against Florida. I don't care that he's not healthy yet. This is a discount. All right. Well, okay. 8.5 was the line, but it was, juiced to the over. With all this Cam Rising news, it has been juiced all the way to plus money. You're going to give me a Utah Utes team that returns most of their core team, including basically their entire defense. And a team that's physical and knows how to play football in the Pac-12 and is dominated. They've won the Pac-12 the past 2 years. They have. They just have, and they're plus 500 again. And you're giving them an over/under win total of 8.5. Let's not do this again, right? And what's their home win streak? It's like 17 games or something like that. They're the best home win streak in the entire country, and they get games like UCLA at home, Oregon at home. I mean, come on, Florida at home, week 1. I don't care. Right? Yeah, sure. You don't draw Stanford on the schedule, but guess what? You still get Colorado, you still get Cal, which you can win, and you get ASU at home. So I say, look, Baylor, they can lose to Baylor and still hit this over. All right, we can be real about that. They could lose to Baylor on the road. I'm not worried. Feed me the over. I don't care. Cole Bishop is a good player on defense. I mean, Tafuna, Green Reed. I mean, just feed me this team, man. Feed me this team. I'm all over the Utes in terms of let's not do this again. Okay. Let's not do this again. Let's not sleep on these guys. I'm not going to do it. I'm not sleeping on the Utes.
It's not that I'm sleeping on them. I guess I am. I mean, look, they get Florida, Baylor, UCLA, at Oregon State, at USC, Oregon, at Washington, at Arizona, 100%. Even. I mean, 100%. That is a gauntlet. And so you are high on them. You are high on them. But I mean, I am too. I think this is, if you want to talk about top to bottom, I think this is the most this is the best roster, I think, in the Pac-12 in terms of just no holes, no question marks, depth everywhere. There's 10 guys they love on the offensive line. I mean, who else can say that in the transfer portal era that is now? I mean, Leonard Barton is a super fun player. Levani Damani from Stanford, they love. Kareem Reed, their linebacking core is awesome. Defensive line, which I know they struggled a little bit last year in terms of stopping the run. With the front seven, it sounds like they got getting a little bit better this year. They got some depth, they have experience, and a little bit of youth too that they can inject in that room. Year 2 of the defensive staff, you're expecting them to get a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. I get it. I see this is definitely as a potential for a 10, 11, 12 win team. At 12 would be tough, but 10 or 11 wins for sure. The problem is the depth of that schedule. I think too many times you could slip up with Utah,
I get it. The schedule is what normally drives me away, but I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Utah is not an insane roster and a legitimate playoff contender. They're a legitimate playoff contender, and their over/under win totals at 8.5. Let's do the math. Come on. Washington. Over/under win totals at 9.5. Kalen DeBoer entering his second year. Wow. If you saw our coaches draft, second year coaches draft, you know that we're pretty high on this guy, and for good reason. I mean, 11-2 in his first year. 11-2. Whoa. That was awesome. Michael Penix, fantastic. McMillan Odunze out there, fantastic. It's a bummer that Cam Davis went down with an injury, but I think this team can bounce back from that injury. So what are your thoughts on this team this year? What are you expecting?
I mean, I love this team. Again, it's unfortunate, but I'm super high on every team in the Pac-12 at the top and those top 5 teams. UCLA probably less than everybody else, but again, 9.5. And the out of conference, I love their out of conference. Boise State hosting them is awesome. I know we're already pounding, at Michigan State in week 3. which is, kind of free money. But even it's another Power 5 team they got to play. Schedule dynamics, the back half, again, is loaded. Out of the bye, Oregon, Arizona State, at Stanford, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, and finish up in the Apple Cup. I mean, but you want to talk about the actual roster itself. Michael Penix found something last year that he kind of had in 2020, but last year was something that even the biggest Michael Penix fans were surprised about. Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator, is honestly one of the best returners on their team. I know Bama wanted him really bad. They settled with Tommy Reese, which is fine, but Ryan Grubb was hot.
Texas A&M interviewed Ryan Grubb for sure.
Yep,
or at least they reached out to him.
Credit to Kalen DeBoer and the athletic department for keeping Ryan Grubb. Cam Davis, injury. So the problem is I was looking at key losses and I was making the PowerPoint. And I was like, they don't have many, right? They lost two guys that I can really think about, Alex Cook and Cam Bright, off the NFL, but Cam Davis, tough, preseason injury. You'd see that. You got Will Nixon and Dylan Johnson behind them. But this offense is run through the wide receivers and the offensive line. Roma Dunes and Jalen McMillan are elite. And even Jalen Polk, a guy that's a really talented player as well. It sounds like he's from Houston, I believe. He's going to get some good touches. And then Troy Fontenot and, the right tackle, Roger Rosengard. I mean, that is awesome. That is awesome. Elite tackles, good guards, veteran play. I like Mateo Meli at center. Even though they got to replace the offensive lineman there, I think, I don't know. The offense, everything you love about it, even defensively. Like last year, defensively, the numbers say it wasn't bad stopping the run. It's got a good front, but, the back half of it, completion percentage, passing yards per game. I mean, it wasn't great. Sack percentage was pretty good because of the defensive line, but I don't know. I'm expecting them to take a jump in the secondary for sure. You got Jabbar Muhammad from Oklahoma State. That was a big get. Opposite him was Elijah Jackson. Elijah Jackson had a great spring for Washington. That staff is really excited he finally came on for him. Devin Banks is a ball hawker that they like. Darren Bankins can play inside or outside. You got Asa Turner and Dominic Hamilton at secondary that they like as well. But, I mean, the real talent is Berlin Trice right on the edge. I mean, everybody knows about him. He'll be all over NFL draft board. Scouts love him and his production and his measurables. But even like, Fatui Tuleti, right? In the defensive interior, they got some guys that have pretty hard names to pronounce, Tuli and Ulamo Ali. But you still believe in him, right? You still like him a lot. Linebacking core, I don't know much about. I'm kind of, it's a wait and see approach there with the linebackers. But what say you?
Yeah, I think your defense will be fine. I think it'll be fine. I do. Yeah. What makes this team appealing to me is just their offense is all back. That's what makes it appealing. I think the defense will be fine. If it's like, look, they can manage to force some turnovers, maybe get a little bit more pressure on I mean, they did a good job getting to the quarterback last year. So, yeah, like you said, though, schedule is those last 4 weeks are pretty brutal. And by that time, if your offensive line, which is it that deep? Is it a really deep offensive line? I mean,
well, I don't know about deep. It's not deep, but in terms of 1 through 5 is
1 through 5 is good. But I'm saying like if you have a couple injuries there, right, and by the time you get late in the season, that could be an issue when you play a team like Utah or Oregon State, who have some pretty good boys up front there. So,
well, we know Utah is not going to be lacking for offensive linemen there.
Yeah, so
God.
I push with Washington at 9.5. Really high on Kalen DeBoer. Really high on this team. Really high on McMillan. I mean, I drafted him in our fantasy quarterback draft. So, and
I got a Dunze.
Yeah, and you got a Dunze. I took Michael Penix. I think that wasn't that my quarterback pick.
Yeah, and I think what's crazy is they had 0 players drafted last year. Like on 11 team, 0 drafted. They're all back, and it's not that we're projecting like regression to the mean, right? It's not that we think it was a fluke, but in terms of betting the over,
depth.
It scares me. I mean, if we get to week 11 or more so, week 7, right, with Oregon or at USC, and USC is a team that's still struggling defensively, and you have Washington and your offensive line is all healthy. I mean, you're gonna shred that team. I think. And so like it wouldn't surprise me if Washington makes a Pac-12 championship at all. But again, I'm not going to touch the over.
Yep, 100%. Washington State, the Cougs.
Oh, Jake Dickert.
Coach Jake Dickert. I mean, well, in terms of in the Pac-12 and how things shook out these last couple of weeks, Washington State got Dickert. They got Dickerted real bad. And is this a bench? Is this a revenge tour? Is this Washington State revenge tour? I don't know. Look, they lost a lot of talent on defense, and that's kind of what made this team surprisingly good last year. I took the over 5.5 at plus 131. I took it because I actually believed in the offense. I believed in the coaching hire. I believed in the offensive coordinator hire. I believed in Cam Ward as well. I thought they had some talent receiver. That's why I took it. I thought that they could have a chance to upset some teams, but they really took their defense to another level this past year. And I don't know that we've seen a whole lot of Washington State defenses do what they did last year. Dan Henley was a really good linebacker. He was one of the top linebackers on my NFL draft board if I was to make one, which of course NFL teams care about my NFL draft board. You know, they're always looking at it, getting ideas from it. So, and Francisco Maigoa transfers out to Miami, where he's going to be an immediate impact starter. So that was two big losses there. Armani Marsh, Derek Langford. So, what do you think about Washington State?
You know what? I like him. I'm actually pounding the over. I'm sorry. I don't know why I was not super excited about him. I love the Dicker team. I think there's a lot to like with them. I think last year you went 7-6 and you still had a chance to beat Oregon. You blew that game late. You had a chance to beat Utah as well. Ben Arbuckle comes in, the offense coordinator, and I think to Washington State fans, glee for sure. You're going to see less bubble screens and all that stuff that you had to do to mitigate the bad offensive line last year. I know you're going to work into some new guys, a lot of battles in fall camp, but it could be okay. You got a little bit of depth, maybe, and position flexibility from guys if you do have some injuries. I think it's all about Cam Ward and how does he improve. I'm really high on him. I don't know if he'll be, elite in the Pac-12 quarterbacks. I just think he's super fun. I think he can take over a game or a drive. The learning curve for him was a little bit tougher than people thought, for sure. But it sounds like he's working on his footwork. They're kind of trending the offense back to what it was with him at Incarnate Word, which obviously beneficial to them. They got deep running back room. Wide receivers, Josh Kelly came in, Carlos Hernandez, a true freshman, DT Sheffield from JUCO, Zion Lucia. I know he was terrible at catching the ball last year, but it sounds like he's improving a little bit. And obviously the defensively, I mean, they were really damn good in Dickert's year one. And Rod Stone and Brennan Jackson coming back. Hopefully they can be pretty damn good.
Look, I love me some Jake Dickert, but I lean under here. I'm not taking the under, and I applaud you for taking the over because I took Jake Dickert in our coaches draft and people pooped on me for it. So I applaud you for taking Washington State. I do just think the defensive talent that was lost in this team is a lot, and I am a firm believer in Cam Ward. By the way, that's also on record too. Now his deep ball was a little bit questionable last year, but defensively, I think it's just a lot to replace. Yeah, I mean they did okay in the transfer portal, I think. So still haven't seen these guys playing a live game yet. So especially like this linebacker. I mean, I think they did okay in the transfer portal at linebacker. I think they filled the spots, right? But
you're not gonna like Henley's in the NFL right now. Like he's a stud. Mile goes over at Miami. You're not gonna replace them and like upgrade at that position, but you won't be bad,
no,
right? They haven't really been bad in camp. They got 5 guys that they believe in, that you can play with. So it'll be a week to be. You could almost like they talk about like the Moneyball thing where it's like we can't replace Jason Giambi's OPS number or whatever, but he scored this many runs or whatever. Like you can in the aggregate you can kind of replace him.
yeah, I agree with that. Look, what do you think about the schedule here? I wanted to ask you that.
I think Wisconsin week 2. I love that game. And you get it at home. I mean, Wisconsin, obviously it's a different team. So they're not going to be quite as upset as they did because they blew that game last year, in Madison. I think that'll be really interesting. I like that's why I kind of like so you got at Washington week 13, you got at Oregon week 8, at UCLA week 6, Oregon State week 4. I mean, that's 4 losses like kind of chalk in, right? But that's still 8-4. And if you sneak out that against Wisconsin, right, you're looking really, really pretty. If not, like last year, right, they didn't beat anybody they shouldn't have beaten, but they didn't lose anybody they shouldn't beat. And I feel like it's a similar team this year that's going to be really consistent. That's going to be a team that you can trust week in and week out. So I think 7 wins is not like 7-8 wins is kind of the ceiling there, but I think 7 is super, super realistic in year 2 of Jake Dicker,
Look, I hope so. I hope so. Preseason awards. These definitely matter a ton, right? Because there are opinions, and our opinions on these players matter to these players a lot, obviously.
Absolutely.
So, let's just start with Pac-12 Player of the Year. Who is your pick? Oh, I wonder who it is.
Well, I mean, I guess Caleb Williams. I mean, I hate to go chalk here. It's you kind of like you saw what he did. The other day. I mean, he was damn good. Against San Jose State, he's going to be really good. Great cast around him. They're going to win a bunch of games. I'm not too worried about him getting injured. I guess I'm not going to wood. Hopefully not. But the returning Heisman guy, it sounds like he's pretty locked in. He's going to be really damn good for him.
Yeah, no, that's a intelligent pick. That would be my pick as well. If I was to say pick someone else for fun, let me go ahead and throw a shocker here at you. And if well, I was gonna throw a shocker. Maybe I'll save it for offensive player of the year. But give me Michael Penix. I think that would be like your number 2 guy, because I mean he just returns everyone, right? I mean, it's like he might just blow the doors off people this year. I mean, I for all I know, they could lose however many games if the defense doesn't improve greatly. But then again, he could win a lot of games and put up yards. I mean, what he led the nation in passing yards last year, or was that Austin Reed?
He was damn close. I think he was right there.
Yeah, he was way up there. So that's okay. Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year. Who are you going with?
I'm gonna go with Jaquindon Johnson from running back from Utah. I think he's gonna have a monster year. I think especially with Cam Rising being hurt. I think with the injuries there, I think it's he's kind of a sleeper guy. I guess I'm not gonna go Michael Penix or Caleb Williams and go chalk there. I think he's really, really special. I think he's gonna have a breakout year.
Nice. Okay. That's pretty. That's a ballsy pick. My pick is probably just as ballsy. Look, if it's not Michael Penix, right? Which I'll make my official pick Damian Martinez.
If Oregon State, it's about time. Where's he been? Yeah, it's
if Oregon State is a wagon this year, it's because Damian Martinez ran for 1,500 yards. And
if you mean when
they're a wagon,
and when he runs for 1,500 yards, and when the fucking Big 12 and the ACC are upset that they didn't bring in Oregon State because they're in the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah.
God, go Beavers. Yeah. Go Beavers.
Let's go Beavers. So yeah, give me Damian Martinez. I'm making that my official pick instead of Michael Penix, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm switching it up right now. All right. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm gonna go another sleeper. Another sleeper here. Give me Brennan Jackson, Washington State edge.
Whoa.
I think him and Rod Stone. I think Rod Stone will get back to his, old self in 2021. I think Brennan Jackson. That's the best duo of edges in the Pac-12, and I think he's gonna they're gonna help each other out. Obviously, I think they're gonna get it. I don't know. I'm excited for them. I'm high in Washington State, so I'm gonna ride that with Brendan Jackson as a guy you should be watching out for. Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow. So you're gonna give me Braylon Trice on this one?
You know, I figured I'd let you, yeah, if you want.
Okay. Wow, there's some other ones I want to take too. I thought you were gonna take Braylon Trice, so I was gonna go with my sleeper. I'll just
We'll say them
well,
both.
okay, yeah, I'll Braylon Trice will be my pick because you didn't take him. And then my sleeper, well, he's not so much a sleeper, but I just really like him a lot. Cole Bishop. I'm a big fan of Cole Bishop.
Wow.
So I think that's like I don't think a lot of people would expect that. But
No.
I do think in this quarterback heavy draft or draft, sorry, it's quarterback heavy league. If Cole Bishop starts doing some work, I think the recognition can come. So let me pull Cole Bishop as a sleeper, but feed me Braylon Trice as my pick. So Pac-12 newcomer of the year. I'm gonna go first on this one. It's Zachariah Branch. He's so
I love it.
good.
And I guess I changed my pick. That would have been mine. I had to change my pick after watching him.
So good. He's so good.
I mean, not to
already,
fangirl over him, but golly. What?
I mean, watching it live was like, well, that first punt return that he had, right? Like that first punt return he had live, I was like, whoa, wait. I was like,
Who's this?
well, I mean, I knew who it was, but I was like, that was rather impressive. Like he was moving, and I'm like, okay. And then he had that like, kind of crossing route, right? Touchdown, the touchdown that he had, like receiving touchdown, where he just like wove through defenders. He like looked like Devonta Smith, and I was like, oh, okay, so like he looks like Devonta Smith, whatever. And then that kickoff return, I mean, he looked like Devin Hester out there. So I'm like, oh wait, so how is this guy Devonta Smith, Devin Hester, all in one? How does this work? I mean, he's ridiculous, and I wasn't sure that he was actually going to get a ton of playing time at the start. Considering that the receiver room is so loaded, but you just can't keep that kid off the field. That kid was ridiculous. That kid was ridiculous, and I regret not drafting him in my fantasy leagues at all. I mean, I'm gonna scramble to pick him up. Hopefully, I can get him. But like that dude was ridiculous.
The hard part is you do have the a lot of mouths to feed in that offense, right? And obviously, Caleb Williams will find everybody, but I'm gonna go Shador Sanders, right? Colorado. He's a quarterback there. I think he's gonna come in. I think he's gonna surprise some people, right? That aren't necessarily familiar with his game and like it's like, oh, it's Deion Sanders' son, whatever. But no, he's actually really talented. He's gonna have a nice learning curve for sure, but I think he's got a good staff around him. He's got some playmakers. We talked about a running back, Alton McCaskill. You got Travis Hunter even on offense, and even Jimmy Horn, right, was one of the first players to earn their number, which they talked about with right, Deion Sanders' staff made everyone earn their number, which is good. But yeah, I'm gonna go Shador Sanders.
I don't hate that at all. But you're not taking the over, huh?
It just scares me. It just
I get it.
too much can go
get
wrong. Well, and if Shador Sanders gets hurt, I mean the under's a lock unless they've won 4 games already. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here comes my coach of the year pick. If you haven't been watching the whole episode, well, I mean, if you gotten this far, you have. It's Kyle Whittington. I mean, Kyle Whittingham. What are we talking about? This dude wins ball games. Sorry, and if he three-peats, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And it's like, and people will like, and then they'll go into the Big 12 next year, and then they'll be like, over under win total 9, 8.5. That's what they'll do. So I can't wait for him to make it to the conference championship game again. Give me Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. You took Whittingham. I'm gonna take your other guy. I'm gonna go Jonathan Smith. I really think the story's lining up for him. If you want to talk about, storyline narrative, voters love narrative. With Oregon State, being left behind, left for dead. And I think they're gonna come in really motivated. All right, if they do win 10 games or 9 wins, whatever that over hits, Jonathan Smith deserves a hell of a deserves a lot. And if it wasn't for Lincoln Riley and everybody coming with and USC, turning around and being like really, really good, right? Jonathan Smith would have been, Big 12 or Pac-12 Coach of the Year, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
Other than that, so we can move on to our conference picks, right? When we get there, it's a tough conference to predict. I'm not gonna lie. I'll let me think about it for a second. I think I'll let you go first because I'm still like up in the air.
Yeah, no, I get it. But my conference winner, I've been talking about it all day. Give me Utah plus 500. Yeah, give it to me.
Oh.
I get that the right pick is probably Oregon or USC. I get it. I get that's probably the right pick, but what are we doing? Give me that again. Give me Utah again. 3-peat.
Yeah,
Come
I like that.
on. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I mean, every bone in my body wants me to say USC, even though I was leaned under on that team. I'm gonna go USC. I hate to go chalk here, but I think they put it together defensively. I think Alex Grinch and his staff finally gets it together. I think, Caleb Williams, yes, Michael Penix is good. Yes, Cam Rising is good. Bo Nix is good. I think what Caleb Williams can do and make up for the deficiencies on USC's, defense. I think what he can do, he can take over any ball game. With that offense, I mean, God, they're gonna be fun to watch. Wouldn't surprise me. In terms of a dark horse, we'll stick with John Smith. Give me Oregon State. Right, I know they're over unders 8.5, so it's not like they're super dark horse team, but I mean, I don't know how many people are picking them to win over Utah, Oregon, USC, and even UCLA. Right, people are high on as well, but I'm gonna go Oregon State because I don't really see anybody else. I mean, I love as much as I wanted to put Washington State in this group. I mean, you can't. I don't think they can. They don't have the wagons to do it. In terms of realistic dark horse, it's going to be Oregon State for me.
Yeah, my realistic dark horse is UCLA. You can get them at plus 1,400. That's
a good schedule there.
Yeah, it's a good schedule. I don't think I'm going to take that because I don't think they actually have the wagons to, but they could make it to the championship game, and it's just not enough. Not enough. It's not fat enough for me to take that. If it was like 20-1, right? Like I would consider a little sprinky, but yeah, my dark horse is UCLA. So give me conference winner Utah, conference winner dark horse UCLA plus 1,400. So, and sorry, repeat yours again.
Conference winner USC, dark horse Oregon State.
I like the Oregon State pick, of course. Yeah, so awesome. I think it was pretty good. I think we did pretty good there. So, anyways, thanks everyone for checking us out. Of course, you want to follow us on Twitter, the Redshirt Soft, tweeting all day during Saturdays and throughout the week. So tweet at us. I'm sure to read it. Don't you worry. And you guys can email us with any questions. We have some mailbag segments sometimes. So if you have any questions for us, just let us know and we'll get back to you guys as well. So this is the last year of the Pac-12. So enjoy it.
Gotta go out with a bang.
Let's go out with a bang. Any last words?
RIP the Pac-12. The Conference of Champions. Bill Walton. That's the only good thing about all this. I'm sorry. No more late night Bill Walton in basketball season.
Yeah, we can finally get him to shut up.